To address high levels of fecal coliform in lakes and creeks in King County, in 2009 the Lakes and Streams Group began looking at lab methods to differentiate general animal-based fecal coliform contamination from human-specific contamination.
Hi, I'm Doug Rice, co-host of the King County TV show Yard Talk. Did you know that there are approximately 200 tons of pet waste deposited in the Puget Sound region every day? A good portion of this gets left on the ground and washes into storm drains, streams, and eventually into Puget Sound. This creates serious problems for both our water quality and for the other life in our waters. One of the best ways of keeping stormwater clean is to pick up all your pet waste and dispose of it properly, bagged and in your trash.
We are now calling this meeting to order. This is the June 2nd, 2026 Woodinville City Council meeting. Can we get the roll call, please?
Councilmember Evans?
Present.
Councilmember Edwards?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Randolph?
Here.
Mayor Arndt?
Here.
Councilmember Wise?
Here.
Councilmember Millman?
Here.
Councilmember Taylor?
Here.
Please join me for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I move to accept the agenda in order and content.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We have no special presentations this evening, and now we can have public comment. Thank you. We have one person signed up this evening for public comment. When I state your name, please come to the microphone. You'll have 3 minutes. And please state whether or not you live in the city limits. Todd Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Todd Johnson. I do not live within the city limits. I'm here representing Lee Johnson Auto Family. I'd like to thank you all for willing to listen to me here in this 3 minutes, but also to look in your packets and see the presentation that we put together. I understand it won't be presented in full tonight, but it's in your packets to be able to review in full, and I'm happy to make myself available to answer any questions that you may have. In addition to that, so just a little bit of history of our business. So my grandfather started our business back in 1933. So we've been going strong for 93 years, representing the East Side. We have a manufacturer in particular that we represent in Kirkland at the moment that would love the opportunity to potentially relocate to Woodinville, which started all of this conversation. We were made aware that while Auto dealerships aren't allowed use in the general commercial zone within the city limits. There are certain restrictions to the code that make it essentially not feasible to locate a dealership, and so that's what we're asking for you guys to potentially consider, making an amendment to the code to make it feasible for us to be able to locate here within the city. I think there's a very limited opportunity to have a couple dealerships locate within the city of Woodinville, and I think dealerships do bring an amazing opportunity for the city and something that you all should consider. Obviously, there's a number of things that are outlined in the packet, but things like the way that we are involved in the community, the sales tax that we generate, and the showrooms that we build now to meet with manufacturer specifications are really beautiful structures and provide an aesthetically pleasing environment for the city. And so I think all in all, it'd be a great opportunity for the city to at least investigate and potentially allow for our type of use. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We have no virtual comments this evening. Consent calendar.
I move to accept the consent calendar as written.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. We will now take a brief recess, and we invite the audience to join us as we go outside and raise the flag for Pride Month.
Oh, I mean, you got a nice outfit up there.
Thank you for sticking with us through that brief recess as we honored some of the proclamations that we approved this evening. We are now moving on to our first business item, which is the Rotary Park refurbishment.
Thank you so much, Mayor, members of the City Council. It's my pleasure tonight to talk about the Rotary Park refurbishment project. As a little bit of background on that project, we are currently looking at refurbishing both the playground equipment at Rotary Park as well as the restroom renovations. There are 3 play structures in the park, one for ages 2 to 5, one for ages 5 to 12, and there was previously a climbing wall area, approximately 750 square feet, that was removed. Why are we doing this project? It's basically because the 22-year-old playground equipment is meeting the ends of its useful life. And then the climbing wall itself was also removed due to potential safety concerns. And we also have the restrooms, which are very heavily used by the high school, and they also happen to have some of the highest vandalism that we have within our public infrastructure and our public facilities. The important part about this project, though, is that the footprint will remain unchanged. So where we're looking at putting the playground structures and where we're looking at putting the climbing structure will be in the exact locations that they're currently located. So really the scope of work of this project, we allocated $600,000 through our capital improvement plan to replace these amenities. We split that further into about $100,000 for the restroom renovation and $500,000 for the playground and equipment structure. And tonight we're going to really be focusing on selecting the playgrounds and looking at those, but I wanted to give a brief update on our restroom renovation project. That project itself is to do interior fixture upgrades for it. We'll also be replacing the fountain outside of the restrooms with the ADA fountain and a bottle filler. Right now we are in this middle phase of the project, which basically is when the contractor gives us product options. We get to see the finishing materials to make sure it matches what our maintenance requirements are in the city. The renovation itself is planned for later this summer. So that'll be happening while we're working through also the playground replacement. But that is also in that picture, that's the footprint of our existing play structures, and they would really go within that, particularly the playgrounds, not the climbing structure, which is on the south side of the park. So a little bit about the procurement and how we got through this design process. So we initially reached out through the King County Cooperative Agreement, which is our way of piggybacking on contracts that other jurisdictions have looked at. We reached out to 4 playground vendors to submit proposals. 8 concepts were initially reviewed. We did an internal staff evaluation of those, took a look at their play value, the accessibility, the maintenance considerations, as well as importantly the construction timelines. We then took that to the Public Spaces Commission. We had the top 4 of those reviewed by Public Spaces Commission. They whittled it down to 3. Importantly, they also added some feedback that we were looking at while they were looking for those 3 playground structures. They wanted integrated climbing experiences. They wanted to focus on ADA accessibility. They also were very concerned about compatibility with the natural character of Rotary Park. Those 3 concepts were then advanced to the community for public feedback. We did a very robust public engagement campaign, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We brought it back to the commission, and now it's for the City Council for final discussion and review. So what were the options that we were looking at? We really whittled it down to 3 different versions of this that have different features for accessibility. I won't go into all of these details. This is just a high-level overview and summary of what the different options were. This was available in the staff report. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer any of them. But what we really were looking at were the equipment materials to make sure that they would hold up to any type of play that was happening. We were concerned about the equipment lead time as well as the construction time on site. Right now, the lead time for any type of purchase would be between 8 and 10 weeks, and then another approximate 8 weeks of construction. So really, we're looking at about 4-month period from when this contract is signed and the purchase order is made to the actual time that it opens up. So we also were concerned about if anything was damaged, whether or not we'd be able to replace those parts. So those were kind of our main considerations when looking at it. I'll briefly go through the designs. I won't highlight all the features of the play features, but I'll kind of show what the designs looked like so you can get a sense of what they were. This was our first option. It featured several different play events, as they're called, including different types of events for musical instruments and sound, as well as other spinners items that have more engagement for ADA accessibility. You had a variety of different objects spread throughout the playground area, and then of course you had a very similar rock climbing wall to what was removed. Option 2, similar in a lot of respects. You have the playground itself, the climbing structure for the older kids is a little bit more elevated than the other one. You have a lot of different activities around the circumference of the individual play structures, but not necessarily individual events that are kind of spread throughout the play space. Again, this has a very similar climbing wall structure. Then the final option we have is a little bit different. It's more consolidated within the larger kids' playground structure, so a lot of the play events are within a smaller footprint on that. You do have a little bit more satellite options like the spinner around there. And then this one had the most different climbing structure, which was that Mobius kind of strip thing with the climbing footholds. So what did the public think about these? Well, first off, we did quite a large engagement. So we sent out postcards to the entire neighborhood around the high school and around the park. We also had an online survey. Both were very well received. And then we did in-person outreach as well. In our survey alone, we had 109 responses, and then in person, we had another 100 responses from individuals who were interested in this. And that in person was both at a couple of park events in April, but also at some student groups and some scout groups that came to City Hall to visit to learn about how the city functions. And so there was overwhelming support for option 1. And the other two had very similar kind of support as options 2 and 3. They were relatively matched in that, but the vast majority preferred option 1. Then we took it back to the Public Spaces Commission, and Public Spaces Commission overwhelmingly agreed with our public, and so they also advanced option 1 as the recommended option. So looking at all the options, what does this mean for fiscal actions? Well, as I mentioned before, we allocated approximately $500,000 for this project. Our actual costs for the restroom renovation are tracking closer to $76,000, so that leaves roughly $524,000 for both the procurement of the playground structures as well as the contingency for the project itself. If we were to go with the preferred option, all options, I should say, are within budget. However, option 3 provides the least amount of contingency for the city and would require more consideration and management when we're working through this. Upon council selection, in terms of next steps, we'll work with the vendor and execute the purchase order. We anticipate the construction to begin later this summer and to be completed by fall. But importantly, throughout the construction process, as well as throughout the time leading up to construction, when we're working on the procurement of it as well, we're going to have signs, QR code, our project, Woodinville, social media pages, all working together to make sure that the neighborhood and community really understands what we're doing at the park, and we're trying to be as minimally impactful as possible. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy, and there's a recommended motion. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you. I am so glad to hear all the public engagement that went into this, and knowing that the kids overwhelmingly are choosing option 1, I think we need to go with the experts. They know what they like. And I also appreciate Public Spaces spending so much time on this and really getting us some good options. So I just want to put it out there. I'm glad that the kids got to vote on this.
Councilmember Millman.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Evans that, you know, overwhelmingly the public picked one. I think that's the direction we should go. That's why we do the public engagement. I do have a question. How is it functional right now? Is for the summer? Is like kids are still going to be able to play and stuff? Okay. I was just curious why we're late into the summer season, and I didn't want to see no equipment. So they have there's a transition of equipment, the old current equipment, and then we sometime in the fall we'll get the new. Is that what I'm understanding?
So the current existing playground is still there. The equipment is still there. Of course, they can use it all the way until we have the equipment here, and then we have to install. At that point, we'll close it down.
Okay.
Yeah, but as Mr. Jeffrey mentioned, we'll have signage and even at the park, and just to let people know when the park will be closed, and we'll keep the closure to minimal. But there are some elements that we just have to close the park in order to get it done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, the playground equipment itself is relatively easy, and we can do that different seasons. It's the safety surface that we need to hit the summer season. I know of a recent example, one of the elementary schools in the district, they didn't do that, and they ended up building a big tent structure over it for most of the winter, and cost them all kinds of money to do that, so we want to avoid that, obviously.
And just a follow-up question on that, the skate park portion of the park will be available to the public throughout?
That is correct.
Thank you.
And we are also trying to ensure the sequencing so that the restrooms are open when we are doing the playground so that not everything is closed. But there may be a time when the restrooms are not open, but we'll have porta parties on that time.
Thank you. Councilmember Taylor.
Okay. Have you taken a look at the security for this? Do we have electric locks, or how are we going to maintain everything so we don't have the vandalism that we've had in the past?
Councilmember Taylor, are you talking about the restrooms?
Yeah,
or
the restrooms. Yeah.
So we do have locks that we do close when the parks are closed, but
do we have cameras, or do we have anything there?
We do not have cameras in the restrooms or outside, no. But what we have done is that all the restroom material is industrial grade, and they are not typical park ones. They're more industrial grade fixtures that are being installed. We are also doing anti-graffiti painting on the wall, as to the extent that we can do, and also just doing the painting that we can easily repaint if needed.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor.
Also happy to see this project moving forward. I do appreciate the amount of community engagement. I had an opportunity to actually visit the park and realize that the high schoolers have a break where they actually venture up to that park and spend time there. So the equipment gets heavily utilized. If anyone was wondering, it definitely gets heavily utilized, not just by the youngsters who visit the park, but the high schoolers that come in as well. So I'm happy to see this. It's kind of gone beyond its useful life, and look forward to moving forward.
Councilmember Wise.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo a lot of the same sentiments that have been said. I know that the Public Spaces Commission definitely was very for option one because the public was very for option one. Also really exciting to see so many people get engaged. I love to see that. And I also just want to mention that I'm very excited that we got another climbing boulder out of these options. That was something that was certainly being pushed for because it's such a unique thing to have. So thank you for all your work.
I move that the City Council select option 1 for the Rotary Community Playground Park Improvement Project and award a contract in the amount of $455,000, substantially in the form presented, and authorize a 15% contingency and authorize the city manager to take all actions necessary to implement this action.
Second.
Maker of the motion, would you care to say anything?
I've kind of said the big parts about community, but I think one of the pieces that I don't want to leave out is that we are coming in under budget. This gives us a good bit of wiggle room, and one of the things that we want to do is keep an eye on projects like this where we can save some capital and extend that to the rest of the community whenever park opportunities come up for us to utilize that fund.
I just want to echo all of the sentiments that have been expressed about this playground structure, and the engagement I think was fantastic with the community. I had a really precious interaction with a young man who kept changing his outfit to come back and vote over and over again. And so maybe not statistically valid, but definitely a lot of excitement about option one there. And just one of the really key things about Rotary Park is that it is a truly multi-generational park we have in our city. It is our most utilized park. It has walking trails used by every age group. It has a skate park, one of the few in our area. We have our graffiti wall, and we're now going to be able to restore the playground and the climbing structure to really round it out. So it's just, it is a fantastic jewel for our city, and I'm glad that it's getting the love that it deserves. And seeing no other comments, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to business item 12, East Rail Corridor Project Planning Branding.
While it's loading, thank you so much, Mayor and City Council members. It's my pleasure to also talk about East Rail tonight. Very exciting project in the city. So just some kind of high level where we are about this project. I know our council is very familiar with it, but to just kind of ground us with this. Right now we're working on the framework plan for East Rail. East Rail is a 2-mile long formal rail corridor that we're looking at advancing into a linear park and trail system. We are in the early planning and visioning stages for that. That framework plan will set the stage for where we then move into design, permitting, and development for that. And really what it does is it looks at the amenities that we'll be putting in the park and really designing and seeing how it fits together with the existing conditions. So that effort was kicked off.
Sorry, Joshua, we have a question.
I'm so sorry. If people aren't familiar, the city of Woodinville's portion is 2 miles. This is actually a 44-mile trail that goes from here to Renton, and we're working with Snohomish County to go from here to the city of Snohomish and then up the Centennial Trail. So I just want everybody to know this is actually quite a large trail area. Our portion is only 2 miles. Sorry about that.
Thank you. No, that's very true. So this project was kicked off earlier this year, and we've so far hosted site walks with staff, city council members, our commission. We've also gathered initial feedback to inform some early direction. We had a survey that went out that was circulated. We've been working very diligently on the existing conditions and resource inventory. We've also been conducting some early stakeholder interviews with our key community groups within the city. So very big project that we're working on, very much excited about this. But our purpose tonight really is to talk about the draft concepts and selected concepts for this section, that 2-mile section of that 42-mile regional trail system, for our purposes of developing what's called a planning brand. And what is a planning brand? So a planning brand is an early project name, logo, and style guide used to help brand the project outreach materials during this planning, design, and early construction phase. What it's not is it's not a placemaking brand. Placemaking brand is the final name that we would give the corridor. It would be tied towards the wayfinding that we do within the corridor. It would be directly related towards how we make the space feel like a place as opposed to just feeling like a existing rail corridor. So that's the placemaking brand. The planning brand is really to help the public who may not be as familiar with the project as we are understand it, get excited about it, know what they're engaging with when we go out through this engagement, because this will be a sustained project, right? Well, the framework plan development itself is approximately a year long, and then as we start the design and then the phased construction approach, this is going to be a long time within our community. So we want to have the ability to make sure that people are understanding what they're looking for and getting engaged in the right way. So that purpose really is to generate that project awareness, recognition, and excitement. That's what we want from it. And then, as I mentioned, this will differ from that final name and place-making brand that will come through. So with that, I'd like to actually introduce part of the project team. We have with us tonight Jeanette and Carrie, who are with Environment Issues. They're a subconsultant of our overall partners, the Burger Partnership, which is helping us with this whole framework plan development. So with that, please take it away.
Thank you, and good to see some of you again from our walk. Yeah, if you want to go to the next slide. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the development process that we've gone through thus far and high-level just overview of what we've done. So we did get some early community input. We did that public survey that Josh mentioned between March 15th and April 12th. We got 51 responses, and I'll share a little bit about the key themes that came out of that. We've also been doing these stakeholder interviews with some of the key organizations throughout the city that kind of represent different communities. We also had a creative brief session where we really wanted to align on audiences, because we know something we've heard repeatedly is Woodinville is really a place that is welcoming and has people of all ages. And so we wanted to talk about audiences and how we could make sure that we're connecting with, like we talked about, the young ones that are going to be playing on that playground that you all just approved, and then also folks who maybe are in later phases of their life. And then we also talked about goals and objectives. So we really wanted to come together on that. Then we discussed some examples that we pulled so that we could talk about colors, things that resonated that felt very Woodinville, fonts as well, styles. And then from that, we developed some concepts, our round one concepts. Those were really an initial interpretation of the themes that we saw from the engagement and from our conversations with staff. Revised those after getting some feedback, and then created round two concepts. There we further refined our name for the project. Again, not the space, but the project of this planning phase. Taglines, and then looked at some potential graphics. Last week, we presented to the Public Spaces Commission. We got their input and incorporated some of that into the concepts you'll see today. And we're asking for your input and potentially selecting one of those options. So the next slide, yeah, I mentioned we've done some early engagement. So some of the things that really stood out was connectivity. So there's really a strong desire for this corridor to have multiple access points linked to different parts of the city, whether that's businesses, downtown, nature, other trails. Sustainability also came up a lot, so really an emphasis on eco-friendly transportation, right? We talk about being able to walk, bike safely through the city. Minimizing light pollution also came up, which is an interesting one. And then, of course, pollinator-friendly plantings. Community identity. So this one also really stood out a lot. There's a desire for this space to be really vibrant and also integrated into Woodinville's character, right? Woodinville, what we're seeing is very proud to be Woodinville, a very small town feel, very community oriented, very family focused, and like I said, something for all stages of life. And then it being a multi-use space, so thinking about the trail, like we talked about, for transportation, a way to get through the city, but also a place to gather. And again, that sort of like Woodinville pride of wanting it to be a destination where other people would come and kind of feel that it's very Woodinville and they're welcome here. So go ahead, Brandon. The project name and tagline. So we landed on Woodinville East Rail, and then the Dream Plan Connect. So this maintains that connection, again, to that larger East Rail and Centennial Trail system in the future. but emphasizes that this is the Woodinville segment, right? We're working specifically on this 1.9 miles, nearly 2 miles, and we want that to stand out. And then we also, this also establishes an understanding of the process. Right now, we really want to hear what people are dreaming of for this trail. Then we're gonna really do the work to plan, right? Figure out how it is that we can make this feasible. And then we'll connect this space. Well, throughout the whole process, we'll connect, but the connectivity that people want to, right? Like we're going to create a space where people can connect. So that is where we landed with that. And there was a slight update. We previously had it plan, dream, connect, but Public Spaces Commission provided some input that felt a little odd. And so we reorganized that to have it feel a little bit more like it aligned with the process.
Okay, I'm going to take us through some of the key elements of the different concepts we've put together here. And here we see concept 1, which was previously presented to the Planning Commission. And this concept emphasizes the rail trestle as the main primary visual element. It uses this evergreen tree line contrasted with a trestle pop color of this lime green to naturally draw the viewer's eye. And in contrast to some of the other choices you'll see, it has a sharper font choice. It's softened by blue accents, and it also reflects that blue tone in some of the mountains imagery. So it has that cohesion to it.
Yeah, and sharing a little bit of the Commission's feedback on this one. There was a bit of a polarized reaction to it with the design of the bridge, with folks feeling like it doesn't match any of the bridges in Woodinville. Some did like that it kind of felt the design looked like a W for Woodinville, but overall it was polarized reaction. So take that in mind. And then one commissioner did mention that we center the text, and that's not shown here yet, but just something for you to be aware of.
So in this refined version, we've really just updated the tagline here to reflect what we've decided moving forward with the new Dream Plan Connect. And we've aligned, kept the actual text alignment to maintain, just to show some different variations of how we could possibly adapt this name into different stylings and alignments. And so our next concept here, this one is more focused on the Woodinville and East Rail text by itself. It's inspired by the design of the new trestle pedestrian bridge shape, and it creates that shape within the color blocks itself. But it has more of that primary focus on the actual text, and it uses two complementary fonts, one that is rounded, more of a secondary font for East Rail, and a slightly sharper font for Woodinville. So it's just kind of comparing it to the first one, which has one typeface used throughout the entire concept. This adds a little bit of variation to how you could establish a subheader versus a main header of a logo type.
Yeah, and this was one of the options, both option 2 and 3 seem to be preferred by the Commission. Some of the things we heard was they liked the use or like balance of the colors in this concept. Some also recognized, again, that the nod to kind of the future trestle was appreciated in this design.
And the only change that we made to this concept is that we updated the tagline, especially since this was one of the more preferred concepts by the actual Planning Commission, and so we've established that here. And so our final concept that we previously presented, this one has a variety of tree foliage shapes. We wanted to show how you could adapt different tree lines in the logo concept itself to show both evergreen and deciduous trees. It uses a simplified and flat bridge design, similar to the arc shape of the last one, but in more of a flat logo type within a unified square shape composition. So it's more akin to signage, and it utilizes a rounded font style consistently across both Woodinville and East Rail. So instead of some of those more sharper choices, we wanted to show a variation that had more of a rounded logo type.
Yeah, and the feedback we heard from Commission, this was one of the more preferred options along with concept 2. The bright green, a few folks called out that presents some readability challenges, especially keeping in mind that we are going to be doing engagement in the summer where it's bright and sunny outside. So you'll see we took that into consideration. They also liked use of both the types of trees. And this was interesting. They liked both of the trees because they feel like it better reflects Woodinville, but they felt that the evergreen trees alone actually looked better in the concepts. So something to consider. And then a commissioner called out the V specifically in the font in Woodinville, not feeling like they looked very much like V's, and so that could present some challenges in readability. And that's, I think those are the main things we heard from this one.
So in taking in that feedback, we refined this version to actually minimize some of the use of the bright green, as particularly in that subheader logo type, and balance it out with a darker contrast blue. We kept some of that green for a pop color because putting some of those dark colors just on top of each other also creates its own sort of color contrast and issues, especially with the new deeper blue color. We've kept the green, however, within the actual shape of the bridge to keep it more obvious, and also to kind of create that color contrast and more visual balance within the logo itself. And here we have them all together just to kind of put them all within the same palette so you can take them in. We've also selected some primary colors that we've established in the logo type as well. And we also put in some accent colors, which we've talked through as well, which could be used throughout the established brand in more of a strategic way and throughout several different materials.
So we can pause here for the city council members' feedback if you'd like. We do have one more slide which basically goes through the next steps of how this will be used before we end in a motion. But if you have any questions related to the design choices, the color palettes, or anything like that, I know Jeanette and Carrie would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Councilmember Taylor.
So are we pretty much set on the 3 words, dream, plan, connect? The plan, I think plan, my opinion, plan doesn't fit, but I'm not sure. I like the 3rd one, though.
Councilmember Wise.
I kind of want to just highlight that because from my recollection, the public spaces commissioners were also a little confused about the word plan, and not particularly due to the order of the words, but just the word plan generally and how the community is going to see that.
Councilmember Evans.
Okay, so a couple questions on the branding choices. So when I look at the East Trail logo, eastrail.org, if anybody wants to go look at it, the T is taller, and it stands out because then it makes trail from East Trail. And I'm just wondering, if we're trying to showcase that we're connected to East Rail, why are we redesigning that portion of the logo?
Yeah, it's something that we can consider adjusting. I think, again, we kept East Rail in the name because we wanted to show that connectivity, but we also want this one to stand out and feel like it's Woodinville's piece of it. So I think we were trying to find a balance there between how to keep East Rail in the name, make it really clear that we are tied to the larger trail system, but again, make it feel unique.
I get that, but we are part of a trail system, and it seems like if we're going to use that word, that maybe we should stay connected to what that branding is and then put the Woodinville piece around it so that it looks like we're cohesive and we're not going off and doing our own thing over here, but keeping the same name. Just from a brand perspective, especially since you chose colors that are very similar to what East Rail has chosen, it is a little bit confusing to see that. And then, when you go out to 124th and Willows, there's an East Rail sign there. And if people see that and then they come and they see our community engagement about this, it will be confusing because they're used to seeing that branding. And I don't want us to feel like we're sort of off doing our own thing. That's my piece. On the plan, I actually think if we're going to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on this, I hope that we are planning. Yes, let's dream, let's think big about what we want this to be and connected, but we better have a plan and a budget, and we better be really clear on what we're doing. So I actually advocate for keeping that word in there. We've already gotten millions of dollars in grants. You don't get that without a plan. And so I think that's a big piece, is that yes, we can take all this community input. We all have our own ideas about what this should be and how it can really activate Woodinville in a new and different way. But we need to plan, and then we need to connect. We need to make sure that we're not just this 2-mile little bit doing our own thing, but that we're connecting out to the rest of them. So I actually like all 3 words.
Councilmember Millman.
Yeah, and I got to admit, I have always liked the Cross Kirkland corridor. I've always liked that branding. It's just very alliterative. It speaks, it's Kirkland. So I'm glad that we're branding it. I've thought about this for a long time. I don't have a better word or phrasing that even comes close to Cross Kirkland corridor, but I just wanted to throw it there. I like the version concept 2. I like how it's kind of curved. That's looks kind of like what our new bridge is going to look like. I echoed whoever it was. I don't like the V that looks like a U in the concept 3. So I kind of like, and I like how it curves, and I like the trees in number 2. And I don't have any problem with plan or the Dream Plan Connect.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Councilmember Millman there. The thing that kind of won me over to actually 3 was actually the blue. So I was originally on 2, but then that blue made it more readable to me, and it made that pop more, and it did differentiate East Rail, if we want to highlight that also. So my perfect one here would be 2 with the blue background on East Rail there. But I prefer 3 as is here, but I think I'd prefer 2 with blue. It would be my vote there.
Deputy Mayor.
I am going to align with Councilmember Evans on the idea of making sure we show that we're attached with East Rail by reusing some of that branding, just because we can designate that this is the Woodinville East Rail or the Woodinville chunk by scale, scope, and color. So we can definitely shrink the size of East Rail, make Woodinville larger, and I can't unsee the weird V.
The weird V.
As for Dream Plan Connect, I think what I'm hearing in terms of Dream Plan Connect, all 3 words in abstract, I think of our constituency. And generally, when you say plan, they want us to do the planning, and they want to dream and connect. So bringing something where that planning's meaningful for our constituency and not for us, because we definitely have a plan. We've done a lot to actually make this happen. But when we talk about the general public, I don't know if plan brings about a connection for the people who will be reviewing this. That's all.
I think I'm also going to align on the reuse of the East Rail branding just to stay consistent with the rest of the corridor, and especially because this is for the project plan itself and not necessarily for placemaking on the trail. So I think keeping that, one of the stories that we are always telling our community is that we are the 2 miles of this larger trail system. So I think maintaining that branding helps us to tell that story to our community, that this is a part of this larger East Rail that they're hearing about in other nearby jurisdictions. I also will align on that because the curved font is very difficult to read for those who have some vision issues. So think that that would be problematic on its own anyway. So, because of its spacing. So,
in concept 2.
In both, because you're using the same curved font in 2 and 3 for East Rail.
For East Rail, got it.
Yes. Councilmember Millman.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I think Councilmember Edwards made a good point. I still like concept number 2, but I do like the blue. I think it pops a little bit, and I think having the raised T is a good idea also.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yeah, I want to share my conflicted thoughts right now. I do agree with the comments being made that we are part of the bigger trail, and using that brand would be helpful. But also, in this scope of our project, we have our 2 miles. This is Woodinville's project. This is what we want to do here. It could be very different than everywhere else. Our individualism in this type of project, I like that also. So I agree, the connection is nice, but also making this ours and letting people know we have control over this 2 miles of what goes there. Everything else outside of that, not so much. But there, we could do whatever we want, or within the rules and within all that partnerships, but within that 2 miles, it gives us that control, I think, and makes it our project of the city. So there's my conflict I want to raise there.
If I may, I thought I'd add a little bit more information onto why maybe the city chose a more neutral stance in these existing concepts. We had some very early feedback from some of our stakeholder groups in our stakeholder meetings. We've met with, just so that everyone's aware, we've met with the Heritage Society, the Pollinator Pathway Group. We've met with the Garden Club, our Chamber of Commerce, the East Rail Partners themselves, and several other of the large stakeholders that we had. One thing that came out early on was very much want to differentiate ourselves from every other, our neighboring communities. But the other thing that was more interesting, I think, is there was a connection that Woodinville's history to the rail line is very unique compared to the other East Side cities, especially with Old Town's development being directly a result of the rail being in the city, in the corridor. And so with the East Trail branding, it very much differentiates itself from the rail connection, and that was a very intentional decision that East Rail Partners did because they were concerned about Sound Transit and other entities kind of linking on to that branding. And so there may be a desire to maintain the East Rail and our rail connection within Woodinville at a community level because of the how it shaped how Woodinville developed. So just wanted to provide that early kind of feedback to why there was a little bit more of a neutral stance. The second more kind of administrational reason that we were concerned about potentially raising the T on East Trail is if we get too close to the East Trail branding and then we're kind of changing East Rail branding, there's that question of whether or not that's okay. So whether or not we would put it into East Rail's actual brand, their colors underneath it, so we just have like Woodinville and East Rail underneath. So that was some of the decision that went into the early concepts.
Councilmember Taylor.
So I plugged in a couple words here into Copilot or AI. Dream Connect Thrive, or Dream Connect Engage, Dream Connect Explore, Dream Connect Grow. Those are good, positive, community words, but just an idea.
Councilmember Evans.
Okay, so I appreciate that background from the staff perspective. I think that if we want to make this something like the Cross-Kirkland connector, we need to come up with a different word than East Rail. And so if we want something that's more about rails, or rails to trails, or something like that, I just think it's problematic to say Woodinville East Rail and then use a different font, a completely different treatment. It's confusing. And I'm fine with us calling it Woodinville East Rail. I mean, I'm probably going to be the co-chair of the RAC pretty soon. I have a really hard time saying, okay, we're just going to be over here doing our own thing, changing everything. It seems like we're not trying to plug into the East Rail system with this. And I would be totally fine if we came up with something completely different. Woodinville, something. I don't know what other things were on the table. We've only obviously seen these 3 treatments and only this logo option. But I really believe from a project brand perspective, if this is what we're going to be out there at all the community events, you know, talking about, we're going to have it on Project Woodinville, we need to be really clear if we are connecting into East Rail or if we call it something else and say part of the East Rail Trail and use that branding. I just don't want us to try to look like we're I mean, the second one, that East Rail, the dark green is almost exactly East Rail's brand. It's just the font that's different and the treatment that's different. And so it just is confusing. And I know there's a lot of people that are really, really bought into this entire corridor. And I don't want us to get a lot of feedback of why is Woodinville redesigning everything that we've spent a couple decades working on. So I don't know if there were other ideas for Woodinville something.
Yeah, we did talk about some other options, and like I said, we landed here because we felt like it was a good balance of like that connection to East Rail, which we do want to acknowledge, but also make it stand out as with the Woodinville added. So we talked in the earlier concepts about some other options for the name and then moved beyond that.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to try and pull this back into perspective a little bit. This is just a development branding, correct? So
yes.
We'll get another swing at this. This is not the permanent end-all be-all final. So
yes,
I guess, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so we call this, and that's why we're calling it the planning brand, right, or branding. And it's really meant to be the brand for these phases of engagement when we're trying to connect with the community for people who either know what it is or don't know what it is, bring them into the project, help them understand that, again, it's 1.9 miles. There's the future connections and existing connections that this trail will bring. It is Woodinville's. We want them to be a part of it. That's also with the plan. Like, yes, it is our jobs to plan, but we want people to be involved in that, right? We are not going to do that alone. That's part of the reason we went with that word as well. And I understand that there's, from a public perspective, like there may need to be more of a conversation around, well, what does this mean, Dream Plan Connect? But yeah, so this is for this initial planning phase. As we said, we could take this into design, construction. We know that there is a desire for a brand for the place itself, for the signage. We've heard that a lot, as Josh mentioned. History, the rail, the connection to the rail seems to be very important. People really want educational wayfinding and signage throughout the trail. It's spoilers, but that's already come up a lot. But I suspect we'll hear that in other engagement as well. And this is really meant to bring people into the process. And then as we're doing that engagement, we're definitely going to be getting feedback that will help us with that ultimate placemaking. And it allows us a good opportunity to kind of launch from, we are now moving out of that construction phase in the future, and now you get your Woodinville blank, right? What is the name of the trail, the space itself? So that's another one of the reasons why we kind of like to have them be two different things. It sometimes creates a nice separation between this very long planning and construction phase for a project of this scale to like reality, it's here, it's yours. Anything else to?
Thank you. Any further comments from council? I think you have all experienced the joy of collective design decision-making. And I think that there are, of course, a lot of positive aspects to the design, but that we didn't spend any time discussing. But I feel like, despite some conflicted commentary, there is a little bit of a momentum to maybe change that East Rail font a little bit. And I'm also hearing a slight preference for concept 2. Would that be reflective of council? Okay. Do we feel like we can select a concept at this point in time? Or do we need another shot at this one?
I think let us bring back a kind of a refined version for you guys to look at.
Thank you. We appreciate this. I know it's a difficult winnowing process. Would anyone care to make a final statement before we close out this discussion? All right. Then I think we will come back with a new, slightly refined version for a future meeting. We will now move on to...
I do just want...
Sorry.
It's okay. I was going to mention that we are going to be having a few engagement opportunities later this summer. We wanted to let everybody know the first opportunities where we're going to be having some major East Rail ones will be on our first summer concert on July 8th. We're also doing it on the Farmers Market in the middle of July, as well as during the parade and celebrate Woodinville festivities in August. So look for us throughout the summer, though.
Thank you. So we should be snappy about finding that final concept.
We'll be back soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we will move on to business item 13, zoning amendment to allow outdoor motor vehicle vessel sales, rental service, and repair.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My presentation come up here. This will be actually fairly short. This is kind of what we've done in the past when we've ever had requests from members of the public about changes to the code. We usually will bring this to you first and see if you might want to add this to the Planning Commission's work plan. So it was kind of commented earlier during the public comment. Mr. Johnson was here representing the Lee Johnson Auto family, and they had this request for a code amendment regarding outdoor motor vehicle vessel lots. So basically what they're asking for us to do is amend our use table 21-21090 to basically add, currently we allow what we classify as motor vehicle, vessel, sales, rental, service, and repair uses in the general business zone as a conditional use. We currently only allow the level 1, which requires them to be indoors. We do not allow outdoor types of facilities along with this use. So what they're requesting is basically to amend the table to allow not just the indoor, but to also allow for outdoor sales lots to be included as well. So it's a fairly simple amendment to move forward. It would be recommended as a conditional use permit since the level 1 currently is a conditional use permit, so we would recommend the same for the level 2 as well. As noted that there is this interest, this is the property that they're taking a look at over there in the northeast of the intersection at Northeast 190th and Woodinville Snohomish Road. And part of the interest in this is because it's got very high visibility. The property currently itself is kind of underutilized with storage primarily being located on the property. And so could be potentially a good location for a car sales lot. The one caution that did want to bring to this is that our comp plan has plans to change a lot of the general business zone to East Rail mixed use. You may recall, for those that were around when we were doing the comp plan updates, the East Rail mixed use zone is a very important element to our meeting state requirements for housing. And we want to be careful not necessarily to lose that. But as you can see, this is from the future, from the comp plan, the future land use map, showing you where the future East Rail properties will be rezoned to. The property that Lee Johnson is looking at is not one of those properties, so it will retain its general business zoning. So if you do want to put this on the Planning Commission's work plan and we do move forward, we'll probably want to write some conditions around to ensure that it will be the properties that remain general business and not accidentally have in between the time of now and whenever we get the East Rail mixed use zone implemented, not having a car sales lot take up one of those East Rail mixed use zones. So That's all I have. Like I said, short, sweet. Happy to answer any questions. And this is, if you are interested in exploring this further, you're not making a decision on the amendment tonight. It's just if you're interested in exploring this further, then this would be the motion to have it put on the Planning Commission's work plan and have them bring back a recommendation to you in the future.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yeah, to the west of that property, or behind, I guess behind McClendon's, you've got an automotive sale indoors, right? Could we also include that area as part of the outdoor? If you go back to the map. Lower left.
So the proposal is by the zoning code. So if the future of the zoning is not to be general business, then that would not be recommended to be included. But certainly if there's a desire for council to have this expand beyond the general business zone to other areas, that can certainly be included in your suggestion that the Planning Commission can take a look at if that's what the council desires.
Okay, so I would like to look at that top rung closest to the freeway. You know, we've got businesses that are there. Automotive looks like that would be a very inviting, attractive type of area as well.
Yeah, the key is that we can't be looking necessarily by property individual. We have to look at it by zoning. And so if again, if it's general business zoning, or if you're thinking CBD or EMU and want to add those into this consideration, then that's what you would take a look at. But we wouldn't necessarily look at a property specific, because we can't rezone specifically for an individual property. These conditions, they need to be set up as a zone as a whole.
Okay, so the recommendation is take a look at it for business because of the visibility from the freeway. And I'm not sure we want to build residential units right up to the back of the freeway anyway, so.
Yeah, the general business zone does not have plans for future residential. It's the EMU zoning that has plannings for residential and is a critical part of our housing policies.
Lower left corner, is that EMU?
Where you see kind of the salmon pink color, that is all future EMU.
Okay, and that's the area I'm saying maybe take a look at the adjacent to the 522, that block that is there. I don't know if we have pointers. Thanks. Right here.
Yeah, so you're asking about potentially expanding it to include the EMU then as well, not just the general business zone.
Councilmember Evans.
So I'm not in favor of us looking at the EMU. It is critical for us to meet our housing goals that are state and county mandated, so we should not be looking at that. The general business area, we have just this little highlighted area. Is there anywhere else that would be impacted by this in the city that's not currently on this map?
This is the only general business zone that will remain. In fact, this is the only area we have general business zone is along the 522 corridor there. So there wouldn't be any other areas impacted by this.
Okay, and then just for the public record, since it wasn't in the presentation, do we have an estimate of approximately how much sales tax this is projected to bring into the city?
I mean, you saw what was in the staff report from Lee Johnson Auto Group, what they put in there. That would be as much information I'd be able to offer to you.
I'm just trying to get it on the public record.
Yeah, according to the presentation materials put together by the Johnson Group, the average dealership in the state of Washington expects revenues of about $75 million a year. Our sales tax that the city would receive, if that was the number, is about $700,000.
Okay, which is a pretty good amount of money for a city of roughly 13,000 residents. That makes a big deal and could really help with our budget situations that we've been taking a look at.
Councilmember Millman.
Yeah, I think I agree with Councilmember Evans. I don't think we want to take a look at the email. We spent a lot of time developing that to meet our housing goals. I'm in favor of rezoning this for several reasons. One, I've been very interested in diversifying our economy away from just wine sales and that type of thing. Tourism, I think that's important to us. Tourism's down nationally. It's down in Woodinville. It's down, and wine sales and alcohol consumption is down. And so I think we should very heavily consider diversifying our economy. And I looked at that, and yeah, the estimate's about $700,000 in sales a year, which 5 years, that's 3.5 million. 10 years, it's 7 million. And we have needs that we just discussed previously on the East Rail Corridor. So we have needs to develop the corridor. We have needs to maintain the corridor. This is go a long ways. And to kind of put it in perspective, looking at our two general sources of revenue is sales taxes and property taxes. And the property taxes, to equate this $700,000, would require about 1,100 homes at 1 point, I think the average is about 1.25, 1.25 million in Woodinville. So we would need 1,100 homes, new homes, to equate to $700,000. So I'm in favor of that. For that reason, this is one way that we can tell the people that we represent that we're keeping your property taxes as low. We have one of the lowest property taxes as a city, as a percentage in the state. And this is one way we're able to keep doing some of the things that we're doing in our city that the people we represent appreciate, and we can do it in a very fiscally responsible way. And then I'm going to suggest to council that we consider in the future, I'd like to see it go to planning, but I'd also consider we have an opportunity in our tourist industrial area. They're allowed to do some of the car lots that we talked about earlier, and that came to my attention when Chateau San Michel was talking about building over there, and it came to my attention that they could do a car lot on the Chateau property. Fortunately, I don't think they're anywhere close to doing that now, but it could be done. So I think the public would appreciate if we changed that zoning near Chateau San Michel and moved it where it's more appropriate in our North Industrial general business area. That's kind of the direction I'd like to see us go.
Councilmember Edwards.
Thank you. Yeah, I also support moving this to Planning Commission. There are obviously many possible benefits that could come from something like this. But while it's at planning, I also love to hear, I'm big on the legislative intent of things. So the reason why it was left out, was that intentional? Was it just not something that was considered? And the pros and cons that come with that as well. There's a lot of benefits that we're talking about, which are great. And I just love to see what reasons why it may have been left off also to begin with, or why that may not be included currently.
I think I'd like to see this go to planning. I'd like planning to kind of consider where an opportunity for a dealership might be within the city. Part of the inspiration for bringing this to council was the fact that we have, as a city, been approached by multiple dealerships over the last few months. And a lot of this is driven by the changes in our neighboring jurisdictions, where we're seeing increased growth and development in places where traditionally more vehicle sales took place. And so dealerships are moving, and I think we have a brief window of opportunity to capture some of that business here in the city. And so I'd like for us to take a look at that in the general business zone, not the EMU.
I move to add to the Planning Commission's 2026 work plan an item to consider amending Table 2121.090 regarding outdoor motor vehicles, vessels, sales, rental service, and repair uses in the general business zone.
Second.
Any comments, maker of the motion?
I'm fully in agreement with moving this over to the Planning Commission. I think that we have a lot of benefit to gain out of this. I do think one of the pieces that was lost in our overall conversation is where this is located. I believe there's currently a recreational vehicle placed directly across from this area, so it's not like it would seem out of place there. As a matter of fact, I think they'd say, hey, here's the vehicle commercial zone of Woodinville, if we wanted to call it that, just where people would go to find their new toys. So I think it's fitting for any changes that may take place, but I look forward to seeing what comes out of the Planning Commission, especially with some of the things that they could explore about existing zoning that's related.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yeah, this is another opportunity, I think kind of underscores the idea we should be looking at growing our boundary up to Brightwater and gaining that functional intersection up there to bring in more business like this. And, you know, just in the future, think about that growth and having that extra capability of a functioning intersection that brings people off the road and into business, but not into the city and traffic. So.
Seeing no other comments, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. We will now move on to business item 14, public hearing, resolution number 686-2027-2032, Transportation Improvement Program.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to talk about the Transportation Improvement Program tonight. Some procedural items. This is a public hearing item. Let me do the other screen. This is a public hearing item, so if we can, I'd appreciate we open up the public hearing.
I move to open up a public hearing and accept public testimony on the 2027 to 2032 TIP.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. And it is at the City Council's discretion whether or not they receive the public testimony now or at the end after the presentation. So would you prefer I go through the quick presentation?
Yes, please go ahead with the presentation.
So some background on this, our Transportation Improvement Program is an annual requirement by state law. Well, during the years that we do our capital improvement program, we bring it in along the same timeline with the project lists that we develop. And then on the off years, what we will do is we refine it based on where we are within our biennium projected schedule. So what this does is it identifies projects that are important to the city specific to transportation, and then it informs other jurisdictions, including the cities around us, King County, WSDOT, our Puget Sound Regional Council, of what the city's intended projects are for transportation network improvements. It also allows us to be eligible for, and I should say this is probably the most critical function of it, it allows us to be eligible for those outside funding sources and the grant funding that we use to build these projects within Woodinville. So what the TIP does not do is it's not fiscally constrained, it's not prioritized, it's not a commitment to any particular project, so we can throw quite a few different projects onto this list, and it's also not the final estimates that are involved in the upcoming CIP. It really is this list of goals and potential funding items of projects that we have that are transportation related. And I should say transportation includes all forms of transportation, so it's active transportation, our pedestrian networks, our bicyclists, as well as our streets and vehicular networks too, as well as freight as well. For our summary for this year, we have 44 total projects, including 4 new projects that were identified in the CIP project planning process, for a total of $312 million, with approximately $71 million of that already assigned funding under previous cycles. And that includes a lot of about $35 million of grant funding that we have for those projects, as well as the support that we've been putting through for local funding as well. And that actually is what it is. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and before you is some recommended motions for it. And of course, the project list and the complete project list is attachment in the staff report. So if you have any questions on any of the projects too, we'd be happy to answer those.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you for the great staff report. I spent quite a lot of time going through it. I like that we have more on there. I mean, clearly we're not going to be spending $300 million on anything anytime soon, but it's great to have those on there just so everybody is reminded. In order to be eligible for grant funding, we have to have it on this list, and that's why it's not committed to or anything. We're just saying these are things that we know we'd like to do, and that makes it eligible. So if any state, county, federal money comes up and it matches one of our projects, that we can go out and say, hey, let's see if we can get some grant money for this. So that's why this is really important. So thank you for all the time that went into this.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none. I think we can accept public comments. No public comments on this. All right.
In that case, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
I move to approve resolution number 686, adopting the 6-year transportation improvement program for the years 2027 through 2032 for submission to the Washington State Secretary of Transportation and the Washington State Transportation Improvement Board.
Second.
Motion and second. Maker of the motion, did you care to speak?
Yeah, to kind of echo what Councilmember Evans was bringing along, this makes our projects available for grant funding. A word during the 90s, I believe, was shovel ready. So making these projects shovel ready and available means that our state and national legislators have something they can pull off a list and say, look at that cool project right there. Look at what I'm doing for the community. And they like having things to show off. So we have to make sure that we have something for them to pick off the list and give it a go. So I think we've been hugely successful in making our connections with our both state and national legislators and getting a good amount of grant funding. And they appreciate the connection that we have with them, and we should keep that going if we can.
I just second that. I think this is an impressive list of projects. I wish I had $300 million to put towards it, but in the meantime, it's a helpful tool to take out for funding asks in the meantime. All right, seeing no other comments, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. All right. Last business item, draft resolution 685, establishing a City of Woodinville council member training policy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As you noted, we've got a draft resolution covering council member educational training, conferences, and similar events for your contemplation this evening. Before we get into the policy itself, I thought it might be useful to kind of explain why we're here. We've periodically received inquiries over the years from council members that are interested in attending conferences, events, or trainings, and we currently don't have a policy to guide us with respect to how to handle such things in terms of funding allocation, travel expenses, reporting thereof, and more. So we're here tonight with a draft policy that formally establishes those aspects, but for clarity, I just want to note that we're not looking for a final decision tonight. We'd really like to receive your feedback, and then assuming this is the direction that council wants to head, we will come back with a refined version for your final consideration. So the proposed policy is in your packets this evening, but I wanted to note a few key provisions. First, the policy itself applies to all council members equally. Next, any training opportunity that a council member may be interested in must be directly related to the member's responsibilities as it relates to service on the city council. Also, as you all know, the city is a member of a number of organizations, and this policy urges prioritization of opportunities offered by those organizations rather than not. And the policy broadly encourages that this training or event be planned for well in advance, and in doing so, approval of such would be incorporated into the budget process as it's currently proposed. I've got some more information on how that might work in subsequent slides, but that's the general outline of how we're thinking about it now. The policy also encourages council members to share information or resources gained from any attendance at these events or trainings among themselves so as to maximize the benefit to the city. When considering—
Sorry, Deputy Mayor has
yes.
a question.
That's one of the first things that I would change. I would want it to be required for you to at least share with 1 or 2 council members, because that way we get some extended value out of it. And, I think we all do pretty good at sharing. Sharing is caring. So I would like for that to be part of the journey.
Okay. Great. The policy also states that, generally speaking, training should occur within Washington. Out-of-state opportunities would require additional council approval and a determination that similar benefits are not available within the state. So while the resolution states the policy and the decisions therein, we thought it would also be useful just to include a few thoughts on how we see this might be implemented from kind of a functional aspect as well. It's our hope that council sees benefit in wrapping funding for training opportunities and events into the broader budget process, as that would allow for a few different opportunities for council deliberation and consideration, and also for feedback for staff's benefit, of course, and that way we'd also ensure sufficient transparency around this as well. Assuming we hear from council tonight that we should continue with this effort, you'll likely see a line item in the city manager's proposed budget for this. And at this point, I've got a few numbers on the screen, and those are frankly arbitrary, but they get at kind of allocating a dollar amount to council members that could be as little as 500, as we've got it up here, or maybe 2,000 for each council member. And council can let us know if that's an appropriate amount, or dividing it by council member is an appropriate approach as well. So I've got a few broader questions on this slide just to close things up and perhaps get council members thinking about this whole effort, and any feedback thereof would be helpful for staff. As I said, if council wants to go down this road, we can return in a few weeks with a proposed refined resolution for council consideration. And we're certainly available to answer any questions.
Questions from council? Councilmember Evans.
Well, I know that all our neighboring jurisdictions have a policy. I think it's good for us to get a policy in place. I think there's probably wiggle room in terms of what exactly that policy is, but there are opportunities that come up that are outside of the organizations that we are, that it could make good sense for us to participate in from a regional connection perspective, from new initiatives that maybe, AWC or any of these other places aren't taking on. There's just, without a policy, we effectively can't even explore being a part of these. And so I think it's good for us to have a policy. I don't know that we have to have, a specific amount per council member. Maybe we have a bucket, and when that bucket's gone, we would have to really weigh what that means. But just in terms of us not even having a policy, we're basically saying we're not participating in anything that comes up outside of the places where we're members. And there are a lot of regional things that are happening that we could be plugging into to make sure that we're not just sort of off doing our own thing again, but that we're part of the broader East Side, the broader King County community.
Councilmember Edwards.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this policy is a great framework to use. Again, it allows us a process to go through these and utilize these trainings and opportunities. We do have a clear guidance too, if it's something that falls outside of scope, what to do. One thing when looking through the policy that I think may also be helpful is how to actually utilize the funds there. What's that process look like? Yeah, we have what those parameters are, but how would one use that? Have that written down, that process created also be helpful.
Deputy Mayor.
Kind of piggybacking on that a little bit, the idea of being able to get funds, it should be able to align with things that we are doing here at council. And by going through the process, you write down explicitly what you expect to actually get out of that. That'll help you be a better council member and things that you plan to bring back to the city. So I just want to double down on that and make sure that that process is clear, and the opportunities and value that it could bring back are pretty untold. So
I appreciate the opportunity we had to set down a policy here because, as Councilmember Evans had mentioned, the lack of policy has really resulted in the lack of participation in these opportunities. And by codifying what the expectations are and the opportunities and the process, we can more equitably distribute those opportunities for all of our council members, where anyone who sees an opportunity and they want to take advantage of it, they know what they can do to receive funding and support from the city if it's something that benefits the city and their role as council. So I'm very supportive of the policy. I like the idea of the additional guidelines that have been stated here. I am curious, so there are some opportunities that have come up, and I know AWC is having a conference in a couple of months, and that would be one of the examples of an opportunity that we could have. I'm curious if Mr. City Manager, if you have an estimate for what the cost of that kind of event would be that may help us figure out what an appropriate budget or budget policy might be for this.
It's been a while since it's been a little bit since we've had active participation in that particular event. I mean, you're looking at probably a couple $100 for registration, and then depending on travel and lodge and everything, I think you're probably pretty safe around $1,000 probably to attend that per council member. Maybe a little bit more, again, depending on the venue and the lodging and those kind of considerations. But rule of thumb, probably about $1,000 for attending something like that.
Okay. So thank you. I think that is a helpful guideline of what the cost might be for a council member to take advantage of an opportunity in an organization that is geared towards councils and cities and that we are already a member of, and it may be a good starting point for the conversations about budget allocation for this particular item. Any other feedback? All right. Seeing none, I think we can take that and move it on.
I think that gives us enough to work with, and we'll return with something else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Final public comment for this evening. No one wants to comment. Well, thank you. Report of City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. Just two items briefly this evening. I'm happy to report after significant delays that I do have today, and I know we're in the process of recording a signed development agreement with Green Partners. So I'm very happy to finally get through that. And then I know they are already in process for some of the reviews, some of the early reviews for their phase one of their project. So hopefully moving forward with that project. Second, and this went out in a news announcement today from our community engagement staff, but just highlighting again, our roundabout project on 133rd continues. There will be a shift next week on the construction area there, where Little Bear Creek on the north side will actually shut down as construction shifts north. The south side will open up. There'll be detour routes signed and flagged, but just that's going to obviously be more community impact as we really start getting into what is going to be a pretty significant couple seasons of construction. So I'll try to highlight those in these meetings in addition to all the other public announcements that we're making on these different topics. But that one will shift starting next week. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to reports of council members. Councilmember Evans.
I just want to say a big thank you to staff for all the work that went into the Pollinator Fest on Saturday. I unfortunately was only able to stay for a couple hours, but I know I talked to a few hundred people. There was a lot of people that came through. It was a very successful event. And I really appreciate all the work that staff did to pull that together. Lots of great materials for us to have good conversations with the public. People had a lot of questions about what was coming. So it was a good engagement. We've also had a slew of grand openings. I had one just today, and I have another one on Thursday. And I encourage council to join me at these ribbon cuttings if you're able, because it's a really great way to see our community. And what I'm really enjoying is the diversification of businesses. We're seeing a lot of different businesses come in, and it's been really fun to talk with business owners about why they're choosing Woodinville. So thank you.
Councilmember Edwards.
No report today. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a meeting, so I've got a couple of things to report. First, I had the pleasure last week of presenting to Arch about our success with Eats Rail Flats. Discussed basically the process of the project and the story of bringing someone who worked in Kirkland much closer and showing impact. There will be continuing stories, but ours seems to be one of the most recent, and I was very proud of that. 2 weeks ago, Eastside Transportation Partnership was in person in Redmond. We talked a little bit about what's going on for FIFA, which you can imagine took up the whole meeting. What transportation opportunities, public transportation opportunities will be available. The expectation is to switch to make sure at least 60% of the people attending FIFA are riding on public transit. So it should be an interesting time if it takes off like everyone's assumed. And those are my 2 things for this evening.
Councilmember Wise.
Nothing today. Thank you.
Councilmember Millman.
Yeah, a couple things. I don't know if we've had a meeting since Trader Joe's open. I think that that was something that the public is really looking forward to. I was there before the opening. The line reached all the way to the road past C's Candy, so it was really well attended. I talked to people in the line, and I explained that they weren't there for Taylor Swift concert tickets, but they didn't seem to have any less enthusiasm. I've been there several times since, and everybody seems to be pretty happy. I've been eyeing the parking to see if that has been a problem. I have not. I've been there 7-8 times. I've not seen any parking with a problem. It has been busy, but there's always been parking there when people need it. So that went really well. Tonight we were able to, and I appreciate staff working on this, we were able to do a ribbon cutting for the new pickleball courts over at Wooden Creek Park. We have 4 new courts over there, and it looks great. They did a good job. It's kind of looks like it's been smoothed out, and I think people that play on that will appreciate it. It's asphalt, so it's easier on the knees and ankles, and the surface looks great, and that was really appreciated. And I'd like to point out there's like 50 people there. We don't get that kind of turnout for a lot of stuff, and so there's 50 people there, all excited about the pickleball there. And then the last thing, just on a personal note, I will not be at the next meeting. I will be in Spain to attend my oldest son's wedding. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Taylor.
Nothing tonight.
Thanks. It has been a few weeks since our last meeting. One of the things that has taken place is our NPRSA meeting, which we officially received the finalized report from the youth, what started off as a needs assessment for youth recreation in our area, and which has grown into a project to bring forward a community aquatic and recreation center for our community. And so that report was finalized and presented at the last NPRSA meeting. And our next NPRSA meeting, I believe, will be held on June 17th, and we are looking to do a tour of the property which the city has purchased for that recreation and aquatic center. So the NPRSA meeting will be, I believe, starting here in City Hall, and then we will take a little journey a couple blocks over and take a look at the space. And this is an opportunity to really make sure all of our partners have a really good understanding of the property, where it sits in the city, things like East Rail, which are directly adjacent to it, and some of the other nearby amenities. So I'd invite you, if you want to go on a little walk, to come and participate with that meeting. I also wanted to share an interesting bit of information that came across my desk today, which was that Community Transit is starting a new bus route that is moving through the city of Woodinville on its way to the Bellevue Transit Center, where it will connect with the 2 line. So this route starts June 13th, and it will be the brand new 908 route, and it will be stopping at the flyover of 522 on its way down to Bellevue. So this is a peak route with service Monday through Friday. But one new opportunity that Woodinville residents have to connect directly to light rail. And that's all I have this evening.
Motion to adjourn?
Meeting is adjourned.